Do you have a dream car? Mine is the Lucid Air. Are you intrigued by electric vehicles? The Lucid Air EV has been called the best driving car in the world. And the Lucid Air Sapphire is certifiably the fastest production car in the world. Listen to Lucid Driver Podcast wherever you listen to podcasts or at luciddriver.buzzsprout.com.
Welcome to the Joy of Cruising podcast with your host, award-winning author Paul C. Thornton, a weekly conversation with the amazing cruisers featured in the Joy of Cruising books, comprised of The Joy of Cruising, Cruising Interrupted, new release, The Joy of Cruising Again, as well as other fun, informative global cruise personalities. It's the next best thing to cruising, hearing about cruising from the unique and diverse perspectives of Paul's amazing guests. If you hear about a cruise that interests you, book it at www.thejoyofacation.com or enter to win a free cruise for two. Again, www.thejoyofacation.com. We really appreciate your feedback, so leave us a text. Paul can't reply, but he may read your text on the air.
Hello, passionate cruisers. This is Paul, and I am delighted to welcome back this week on the Joy of Cruising podcast, Dixie Krystals, Virgin Voyages. I met Dixie on my first cruise on Virgin Voyages, a transatlantic cruise from Miami to Barcelona, Spain, aboard Virgin Voyages Scarlet Lady a couple of years ago. Dixie was the Diva on Scarlet Lady. I experienced Dixie in several settings and always enjoyed her. She was funny, and can she ever sing? I was delighted when Dixie agreed to be on the Joy of Cruising podcast shortly after that sailing, episode 104. I was very pleasantly surprised when her episode became a runaway hit, the fifth most popular episode of my 230 plus episodes. Dixie has a website and is on all major social media platforms, and has a podcast, Spilling the Tea with Dixie, where she chats about her work in the Colorado LGBTQ plus community, her work in theater, reading, and baking, from www.dixiekrystals.com. Dixie Krystals has been dazzling audiences for 25 years. She grew up in a small town in Pennsylvania and always dreamed of having her name in lights. See where that got her? You can catch Dixie on Discovery Plus in Generation Drag, which is a 34th Annual GLAAD Award Nominee, Outstanding Reality, as well as performing around Denver and beyond. Her live vocals and tremendous comedic talents are undeniable. She was trained in musical theater and has worked for Walt Disney World, Princess Cruise Lines, Busch Gardens, and various regional theaters. Passion for community is what drives her to excellence. She is an ordained minister, bingo queen, MC, and fabulous hostess with the mostest. She's won an award for her podcast, Spilling the Tea with Dixie, where she spills the tea on her life and worldly events. Dixie is currently entertaining on the high seas as the Diva for Virgin Voyages. Welcome back, Dixie, to the Joy of Cruising podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be back.
So how you doing?
As you can see, I'm doing really good. I haven't had to shave in a week and a half. It's been so nice to be back home.
Well, before we discuss your illustrious singing, comedy, emceeing, and performing on the ocean career, just tell our listeners about yourself in general, where you're from, where you live, anything else you would like to share.
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm originally from Pennsylvania, right smack dab in the center of the state, a little teeny tiny farming town. And I now have lived in Denver, Colorado for about the last almost 18 years. I've lived in New York City, I've lived in Orlando, and then my husband and I moved here from Orlando 18 years ago. And I love it so much here. It's just such a beautiful state. I mean, we're 70 degrees today in the middle of February. So, I mean, it's just crazy that, you know, I came home and it was a little chilly for a few days, and I thought, I'm not sure how my body's going to acclimate to this. And then all of a sudden we're back to the 70s in February. So it's a crazy place to be, but I love it.
So I recently reached out to you because I am, I should say, about to board Virgin Voyages Brilliant Lady.
Yes.
and I was hoping that you would be on board. So I reached out, but you told me you had just gotten off, right?
Literally, yes. We left on February the 12th was our final day on board as the first happenings cast.
Okay. So get me excited. What can I expect on Brilliant Lady?
Oh my gosh, so many things. I will tell you one thing. It is the only ship in the entire fleet that has so many different entertainment options. There are 6 brand new stage shows on top of 17 brand new happenings events. So there's new things happening for a lot of our repeat sailors that have come back. They're getting excited about the different events that happen on the different itineraries. So based on the itinerary, whether it's a 9-day or some of the longer ones like the 11-day, they kind of put everything out there. But on the shorter ones, they can't obviously do that. But there's so many beautiful things, like Murder in the Manor is one of the brand new shows in the Manor itself, which is really just fun, campy 80s, just an immersive experience about a whodunit, like who murdered Sheena, So it's a story all about that. There's some beautiful stage shows in the Red Room as well. There's one called Red Hot, which is fashioned all around Richard Branson's illustrious career in the music industry and focuses on people that he's signed to his Virgin Records label back in the day. Has some rare scene footage, that type of thing. But there's so many new entertainers on board the Brilliant Lady that it's the most that any ship has. I mean, there's about 96 entertainers on board when on a typical ship, there's only probably about 40. So they've pretty much doubled the amount of entertainers that are on board for Brilliant. And it's just so fabulous.
Wow. And the sailing that I happen to be going on, I can't remember the name, but it's kind of a special sailing. It's got
Red Hot.
Nile Rodgers. Yes, Red Hot sailing. Yes, got Nile Rodgers and Chic.
It does, yes.
Who I've seen before and love live. I'm really excited about that. Now what about the what's the right word? The hardware, the logistics. It's exactly the same as I met you on Scarlet Lady. Anything changed in terms of the layout?
Yes, they did update the roundabout. So the roundabout is more of a living room setting now. So they took out all the partitions that existed in the roundabout. They took out all of that closed off area with the raised benches, and they made it more like a living room setting on both sides that are good for cocktail time, for daytime. So it seats a lot of people. You can fit about 150 people in that space now, where before you couldn't do that.
Oh, okay. That's exciting.
So that's all new. Yeah, and they moved into the area between what they used to call the library, which was right before the hallway getting to Grounds Club. That's where the Shore Things desks are. So they're just raised red desks rather than that big long red table that used to be in that space. But it's a multi-use space, which is really beautiful, and it gets used a lot. And then also the brand new restaurant, which is Razzle Dazzle by night, is Rojo, which is the Spanish infusion restaurant, which is one of my absolute favorites.
So Razzle Dazzle is still there?
Yes.
It's just that, okay.
Yeah, all the ships will have Razzle Dazzle by day, and then in the evening it'll switch over to whatever the specialty restaurant is.
Now I can't remember. I know I made reservations for the eateries, but I don't remember being able to make a reservation for the new spot.
I believe it's still on the reservation system. It shows up as Razzle Dazzle, whether it's daytime or nighttime.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you were on as a diva, or you were just sailing it?
Oh, no. I was on board for about 9 months.
Oh, as the diva?
Yes.
Okay. So they have somebody new on now?
Yeah. So Cara Couture is the new diva on board, and she is the first diva that's done all 4 ships in the fleet. So she has done the Scarlet, the Valiant, the Resilient, and now Brilliant. And she's from Ireland, and so she's having a good time, and people love her so much. She's another one of the Virgin favorite divas. So I was really happy to get to spend some time with her to do a handover. But yeah, I was on board for 9 months of this contract, so I was ready to go home.
So you're staying with Virgin, I hope.
Yes.
So are you able to talk about what's next for you?
Well, what I know of it, yes. So basically what I'm doing is I have stepped away from being on board. So I no longer want to be on board for 6-7 months. It's just, I'm too old for this stuff nowadays. This is for the young. It's for the young people to do. I always say if I were single and younger, I would do this till the day that I die, but I'm neither of those things. So it's a tough thing. And so I made the decision early on, like as soon as I joined rehearsals for this contract, I was like, this will be my last. I'm launching a ship. it'll be good. It's a good 9 months. It's an extra couple paychecks. I'm like, we're good. I'm good with just kind of stepping away and going in a different capacity. So I've chatted with everybody from Nirmal, the CEO, all the way down to our vice president of entertainment, Richard Kilman, and basically, I'm staying on as a contractor, so I will help. Currently, I'm helping hire and recruit new divas. So we're in that process right now. That I've got a good selection of people that we're kind of recruiting and chatting with, and giving them. I'm kind of giving them the real deal of what it is like to be a diva on board, so that they're not surprised by anything. And then we're going to continue some interviews with that, and then invite them to Orlando for an in-person audition at the end of March. So hopefully we'll get a few new divas out of that whole realm of things. But they continue to go to different cities to audition. And then I will come back also as a contractor doing special events. So I know I'm doing one in May that I just got put on my calendar yesterday. So I'm popping around to the different hotels, to the different pop-up events that are happening around the world. So not just in the US, but also overseas in Europe. So I'm excited to work with Nathan and Nirmal and the team on the marketing side as well to kind of promote the Virgin brands and not just Virgin Voyages. So I'll be working kind of with the Virgin brand itself and getting the word out about that. So I'm just really excited about it, that I don't have to.
It really,
I don't have to be committed.
Really does
for 6 months.
sound exciting. Now, when you do the special events, will you do that as the diva? Or will you? Okay.
Yes. So I will do those as.
Oh, that sounds. Well, best wishes. That sounds great.
Yeah, I'm really excited for it. I'm excited for new challenges. And, obviously with me being back on land, I'm going to start continuing traveling some more just with my own shows that I have as Dixie. So that's exciting as well. Yeah.
Well, you just that's a good lead into my next question. Your own shows as Dixie. You've done it all for 25 years. Tell the listeners about your performing career.
Yeah. So I just celebrated in April of last year. In April of this year will be my 27th year. Of
27 years. Okay.
27 years it'll be in April of me performing in drag, but I've been doing theater my entire life. So it's one of those things that I have done so much, and I have been very blessed in my career to be at the right place at the right time or know the right people, that I have very rarely had to audition or put myself out there for a gig. It's always just come to me by word of mouth, or they've gone through my agency, or they saw me at an event and they gave me a business card and I just followed up with that because, this is my brand, this is my business. So I have to keep up with those things as well. So, I've done everything from television to musical theater to, I've done Comedy Central. There's so many different things that I've been in the right places, in the right room with the right people that have really gotten me the jobs that I've gotten. And I feel very fortunate for that, because not people, most drag queens at the age of what I am right now, 52, are not working in this professional capacity. They're not still making a paycheck consistently. It may be here and there, and they're doing one or two things a month. But to be able to say that I can retire tomorrow and be comfortable, like that's unheard of in the drag world at this age. So, I'm very, very lucky to be where I am.
We'll be right back.
The Joy Vacation by Dream Vacations invites you to join us on a bucket list adventure to Africa. We're going to Kenya and Egypt for 14 days, April 10th through April 24th, 2027. A week in Kenya, including safaris, and a week in Egypt, including the pyramids and a 4-day Nile River cruise. This adventure includes air from the U.S., all transfers, all accommodations, private tours, and many meals. $5,000 to $5,500, depending on air, per person. Double occupancy. Only $250 per person deposit due at booking. The remainder is not due until late 2026. For a detailed itinerary, online brochure, and to book, email me at pthornton, THORNTON, pthornton @dreamvacations.com. Now on www.DixieKrystals.com, it mentions some familiar names to my listeners: Walt Disney World, Princess Cruise Lines, Busch Gardens. Say something about those venues.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started my career at Disney World. So I was recruited right out of college in New York City as a vocalist for Disney. So I flew to Florida And I worked at the Magic Kingdom for about a year and a half. And then I was fortunate enough to open the new Animal Kingdom park back in 1998. So I did that and did the Jungle Book show. And then when I finished my career with them in about 2003, I had finished doing Voices of Liberty at Epcot. So I really had such a good time there. I learned so much musically from them. And then that's when I got recruited to go to Princess Cruises. I had some friends that were dancers and they were looking for some male singers. And I literally just reached out to the vice president of entertainment at Princess, and she said, "Can you fly out to Beverly Hills this week for an audition in our studio?" And I said, "Absolutely." I was working a daytime job. I went to my boss. I said, "Hey, I have this audition. They want to fly me out. Can I just take the day off?" And he was like, "Absolutely. Do what you need to do." So I flew to California. I did the audition. I was in the room for about 30 minutes, and I had a contract in my hand before I left the room.
Right.
And that started career at Princess. And then I did that for about 5 years. I was on the original Sun and the original Dawn Princess, which was the Love Boat class back in the day in the early 2000s before they retired them. And then I brought my last contract with them was on the Coral Princess, which was the larger of their fleet as they were going. But now obviously there's mega ships out there and so long. So I really had about 22 years in between my cruise ship experiences, from being a singer into being a drag queen on board. And so very different experiences, very different time frame to work on a ship, because there's a lot more, laws put in place that are in favor of crew members for them to work in a safe and self-respecting kind of position at sea and be taken care of. So that was really nice. Yeah. And Busch Gardens, I was there literally just temporarily. I did Christmas with them for a year, for one Christmas. And then I opened a new show that they did that was based off of Jersey Boys called Rock-a-Doo-Wop. And so I did that for a summer. And so I was there for just a short amount of time at Busch Gardens. But that was, again, just happenstance. Some of the people worked on cruise ships, and they knew I was coming home for the holiday season. And so it just happened to be where I came off of Princess and moved right into working at Busch Gardens and doing all of that before we moved here to Colorado. Yeah.
Was your stint at Princess your first time on a cruise ship, or had you cruised as a child?
No, I had never cruised before, and it was my very first time stepping on a cruise ship. And it happened to be the horrible hurricanes of 2004 that happened in Florida. That were the 4 hurricanes back to back. And I was like, oh gosh, I don't know what's going to happen. And I remember we're getting ready to do one of our main production shows on stage, and the wardrobe started to fall over. Wow. And then all of a sudden they were like, the show's canceled. I'm like, that old adage of the show must go on, even in a hurricane, existed back in 2003. But quickly they realized that it just wasn't going to be safe for people. So they took that away. But luckily, I have never experienced, any kind of sickness on board when it comes to just overall funk that people get on a cruise ship, but also not even seasickness. I still to this day have never gotten seasick. Right. So very thankful, again, because it was my very first experience being on a cruise ship. I didn't even know what to expect as far as just living on a ship, let alone being on one for the first time.
Talk about your career with Virgin Voyages. You had been away from cruising, what did you say, 10 years, 20?
Almost 22 years, yeah.
22 years.
Yes.
Well, how did that come about?
Well, again, a friend of mine that I used to work with at Walt Disney World as a dancer, she was the casting director for Virgin during their ramp-up page in 2020, 2021. So they had a whole team swap over during the pandemic. Obviously, they launched and then nothing happened. They just made their way to New York. But they were coming out of going back into sailing in 2021. And she reached out to me. She said, hey, I have this role. And she's like, I think you'd be really good for it as a drag queen. She's like, you're very funny. You have good comedic timing. You have the experience with people, blah, blah, blah. She's like, let me send you kind of a synopsis of what this role is. Well, it's nothing like it is today. Originally, the role was just to basically be Julie from the Love Boat. You were there to greet people as they came on board, to look fabulous. You hosted a brunch. You did a little game show. You talked to people. It was mostly just roaming and talking. And there were no singing was involved, no shows, no nothing of that nature. And then, so they flew me to Vegas in 2021. And I sat in this beautiful bar area with a couple other very well-known drag queens in the country. And they kind of just brought us in the room to kind of pick our brains about what the role would look like, what we would like for it to be. We did some interviews, we chatted, and after about 30 minutes, we were finished. And so then I flew home the next day. Then about 4 months later, she reached out again and she's like, we're going to send you some sides. because we're now going to make this a singing role. So the diva will have her own production show. She's going to sing. She's going to do some bingo and sing. So they just need to see you sing something. And I said, well, it's all available on my social media. And she was like, just do this. And so I said, okay, cool. So I did some recordings for them. But back in that time frame, I was ramping up to also do a television docuseries, which we had just pitched. That got picked up. And so when that offer came through, I wasn't able to do it. So I wasn't able to go to Virgin at that time in 21. And then that's when Titicaca came on board, which she was a perfect fit for that time and all of that. And then another time frame came around that they reached out, and again, it didn't work out for me. So the third time, I happened to be on board as a sailor with some of my good friends here in Denver. And it happened to be Cara Couture's very first contract on Virgin, which was just about 3 years ago. And so she and I hit it off really well. And it was a group of drag queens from here in Denver. So we all gathered around her and talked with her. And she found out through us chatting that I had, done auditioned for this diva role, the things that have happened. And she's like, oh, the team is on board. I'm going to tell them about you because they're still looking for divas. And I said, okay, great. She's like, would you ever do it? And I said, I don't really know. I just don't think it's the time or place. And there were just a lot of things happening in the world, obviously, with it still coming out of the pandemic world.
Mm-hmm.
And then about a week later, I got an email from the Virgin team saying, hey, we understand you were just on board with us. We would like to chat with you if you have time. So we set up a Zoom meeting the next day, and it was a group of 10 people from casting, and we had a nice conversation. They sent me a side that I kind of just read off the cuff for them from around the world, and they sent a song, and I sang the song for them. And after about 45 minutes of chatting, they were like, okay, well, we definitely want to have you on board. So how can we make this happen?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so basically about 24 hours later, I had a contract in my inbox to sign. And it was with a caveat because they needed me to come earlier. So this was in like around September, and they would have needed me in October to come right away. So I had about 6 weeks to prepare if I needed to go right away. Someone was waiting on their medical to be approved, and they just wanted a backup just in case. Well, that person ended up going through and their medical got approved. So I didn't have to get ready that soon. So then I joined them in January of 2024 in rehearsal. And that was kind of my whole journey, starting with Virgin and this craziness of literally the day that I left on February 12th is the day that I started my very first week of shows taking over on Scarlet Lady 2 years prior to that. So for me, I'm a person of numbers. I'm a person of like the universe works in mysterious ways. And when you know it's right, it's right. So I knew at that time, I'm like, all these things have come together. It's 2 years, it's 3 contracts. It's 2 years to the day of when I took over on the ship of Scarlet. I'm like, yeah, this is all the signs are coming to me that this is my time to move on to some other things and help with other brands on the Virgin side of things.
Well, this is kind of a duh statement, but I have to say when I watch you or the time I watch you, I mean, you really seem to be, again, in your element. You seem to love what you're doing.
I really do. And that's the hardest part as a performer, when you walk away from things, when you enjoy it the most.
Mm-hmm.
But I have found that every time that I have done that in my career, so many other brighter and better things are out there in the future. And so you just have to make yourself available for that, because I truly do absolutely love what I do as a career. I love being able to make people forget about real life for even just an hour at a time, so that they can sit down and laugh and chuckle and have a good time with friends and family or girlfriends and boyfriends. And it's just one of those things that brings a smile to my face. And I often lose myself in my show on tangents because I just get so caught up in what's happening within the audience and conversations that happen that I really do have to keep a timer when I'm doing an actual show when I travel, because I'm like, oh, I have an hour and a half to get this show done, and I need to get through the story of what the show is. But, I think that's the biggest thing that you miss as a performer, is having that interaction with people and all the time, especially when you love it so much. And I mean, that's one of the things I always tell people on board when they would be like, you must work so much. And I'm like, honestly, I really don't. I work so much more at home. It's so much harder at home because I have to think about what I'm going to do next. Here, everything's laid out for me. I get the night before my schedule. I know exactly what I'm going to do in that voyage or that week or whatever's going to happen. I don't need to know day of the week or time of the day. I just need to know where I need to show up to turn it on so that I can entertain people and make sure that they can forget about anything that's happened in their life before coming on board, so that they can really just truly sit back and enjoy it.
As you reflect back on your career at Virgin, not that it's ending, but your diva career, is there a cruise or two that that has been really special for you, or are they all, the same?
No, there are many, many, many that I have memories of, and but it comes down to the sailors. It really is the sailor experience, and we talk about that all the time. But it's different in my role and also the hostess role because part of our job is getting to know people outside of our persona. Part of my thing that I enjoyed so much about it is I did enjoy getting out as John and enjoying people and sitting at Sip Lounge and having cocktail or having tea or just sitting and just having a good conversation outside. If I saw them on the street, stopping, having conversation, going to dinner, those types of things. And I think one of the very first memories I have, it was my very first voyage, and I met who I now refer to as my gaggle of gays, because it was this group of 30 guys, this group of 30 guys that did not come together on the ship. They just happened to meet each other because they created their little meetup group at the dock house on night 2, and they invited me after bingo. They're like, hey, if you want to come and join us later on tonight around 5 o'clock, we're going to meet up for drinks and just get to know each other. So I was like, sure, I'll do it. It was my first voyage. And I literally have met some of the most wonderful people. And I just did 2 of them who got engaged that voyage. That's whose wedding I just did in Cancun. They flew me there. I did the performance. And then another group of them, I'm doing their 40th birthday on board the Valiant Lady at the end of June, just as a sailor, and going on board to celebrate their 40th birthday. And so that's my very first number one memory that I have, and that will always stick with me. But there are so many sailors that have just touched my heart. And a lot of my job, and people would ask me in my cabaret, is like, what's the one thing that you love about being the diva? And I said, my number one thing about it is if I can change someone's mind, just one person, mind and heart, about how they feel about me as a drag entertainer and overall drag entertainers themselves, or just queer people. And then I feel like I've done my job. Like if I can get one person to change their thinking about that, of what they think that we are, versus of putting it in front of them as an entertainment piece in a palatable way. I always say I'm there to meet people where they're at. I'm not there to force people to join me in where my thinking is. I'm always happy to meet people in their thinking of where they're at. And that happens so week after week. Honestly, there wasn't a week that wouldn't go by that I wouldn't have people come up to me and saying, thank you so much for saying that. And my husband is afraid to come talk to you. And then he would come over and talk to me. And he was like, I don't understand it. I don't know it, but I'm entertained. He's like, you have a beautiful message and a beautiful voice. And I hope that other people will listen to that and take it away and spread more love. And I'm like, that's all I need. That is all I'm here to ask for, is that we just spread a little bit more kindness. That's it.
Hey, something I know I didn't ask you the first time around. You just mentioned you're talking about the sailor's husband. Your husband, does he ever come on the ships?
Yes, all the time. So this particular contract, he retired in February of last year. So he was with me for almost 3 months of this contract back and forth. So he joined us in Portsmouth for the Friends and Family crossing to bring the ship into New York City. And so he got to be a part of the documentary and the music video and all that fun stuff happening with Richard on board. And and then he left and came back a few times. So he was on for a total of about 3 months out of my 7 months on board.
Was that his first time cruising? The first time he came on Virgin?
No, he had sailed with me a long time ago on Princess. And then with Virgin, he's been on probably 6 or 8 times before that.
Okay. Yeah. Hey, a self-interest question.
Yeah.
Say something about Bimini. This will be our first time experiencing it.
Oh my gosh. I'm telling you, I love Bimini so much. First of all, it's the most beautiful water that I've ever seen in the world. And being everywhere, it's just so blue and pristine. Now, one of my favorite things about Bimini is that you can actually there's 2 ways to get to the beach club. You can either take the tram. I enjoy walking to Bimini because it's just a short, maybe 25, 30-minute walk. And you get to walk over the bridge, and there's always a school of sharks that are there, just kind of feeding off the bottom of the ocean. And you can walk through the town, and then it gets you over to the beach club very safely. But the beach club is so much fun because you have 2 choices. You can be beachside on the ocean, or you can be at the pool area. So the pool area is nice and tranquil until about noon. And then noon is when one of the resident DJs comes out. And they basically will start amping up kind of the energy. Mm-hmm. And then at 1 o'clock, from about 1 until 3 p.m. is when the Happenings cast is there to have a pool party. Okay. So there's lots of things happening. It's called the Float On Party. So there's floats that they bring out. There's a lot of dancing that they do around the pool with specific music. It's just a really, really fun time. The food is delicious. Now, all the food and beverage all come from the ship, so your wristband works there, which is great.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so the food that they bring out, you can't ever get on the ship anywhere. It's only available at Bimini, but they do the most fabulous jerk chicken that I've ever had in my life. It's so good.
Wow. Well, we love jerk chicken. Wow, you certainly amped up my excitement
Oh,
with Bimini. So
yeah, and there's lots of cabanas. So they do rent out cabanas around the perimeter. So there's cabanas by the pool side, in the quiet areas, and then also on the beach side itself. So there's lots of opportunities to do that. And they also come with like drink packages, and you have a server and all that jazz. But it's always very comfortable. I mean, I always have it. The last time I was there about 3 weeks ago, it was freezing though. Because, obviously it's winter still, but it was only maybe about 65 degrees. It was so cold, but I still enjoyed it. I still went to the beach and I sat by the ocean just to listen to the water. And yeah, it was fabulous.
great. Another, and now I'm being real detailed. Another self-interest question. Does internet work there?
Yes. Yeah. So your Wi-Fi from the ship will work there.
Great. Let's talk about the future. Do you have any personal travel booked?
Yes. So let's see, I'm going to visit my family next month. My dad and my brother and my nieces and everybody is in Pennsylvania. So I'm going there for my dad's birthday, which happens to be on Easter Sunday this year. So I'm going to go there for a weekend to see them in Pennsylvania. And then we don't have anything really planned until June for our anniversary. That's when we're going on Valiant Lady. We're doing 2 back-to-back voyages out of Barcelona. So we'll be on board for about 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm super excited about that. And then we always do spontaneous travel, mostly to Vegas and California, because we're on this West Coast side. So we'll typically pop over to Vegas quite often. I'm doing a lot of out of town work myself, so I'm just trying to put personal and business all together so I don't mix up travel dates.
Well, I want to ask about your out of town work because maybe some of the listeners could catch you. But I want to go back to Vegas. Have you been there since the Sphere opened?
No, I have not.
Okay, yeah. I've been to Vegas a million times, but I kept seeing images of the Sphere, and I was fascinated. So we finally we went, a couple of months ago. Of all things, we saw Wizard of Oz in the Sphere.
Yes, that's what I want to go see. Yeah,
paid $300 to see something I've seen a zillion times as a kid, but it was worth it. It was worth it.
I've seen the videos from that, and it's so interactive. I love what they've done.
Yeah, you feel like you're in the movie. I mean,
that's incredible.
Like you're one of the Munchkins when the Munchkins are
Oh my gosh, I love that. That's amazing.
What's on your travel bucket list? You have anything, any place that's special that you want to get to?
Not to travel to, but we do want to become snowbirds within the next year. My husband, when I came home, he's like, I'm over winter now. He's like, we can do whatever we want to do in the winter. So I said, great. I've been looking at Spain. So Valencia in Spain is one of my all-time favorite places I've ever visited.
Mm-hmm.
The people are just fabulous. I love the sangria and the paella and just everything about it. So I think we're going to go there next winter and just spend a month or two to check it out, to see how we feel. But I think in retirement, some great advice we got from his dad and stepmom is don't buy something in retirement. Just go someplace new every year.
Mm-hmm.
Just keep going. Go to a new country, go to a new spot, go to a new state every winter. That way you're not tied down to the ins and outs of everything. It'd save you so much money, because they made that mistake in their retirement of doing an income property, and then it became a pit.
Yeah, a money pit.
Yes.
Have you ever performed in Valencia or in Spain?
I have not performed in Valencia, but I have many contacts there. So I have a lot of contacts in Barcelona, in Malaga, Valencia, everything within like a 45-minute circle of Valencia. So I would have no problem getting work while we're there, just as sporadically as I wanted to. It works out perfect. Yeah.
So I cut you off, but you started to talk about your performances in the States. You have anything coming up that some of my listeners might catch?
Yeah, so I'm doing my one-woman show here in Denver on March 26th. It's the last Thursday of the month. So I have that here locally in one of our very historic, the May DNF Clock Tower, which is downtown Denver. It's been there since the early 1800s. It's a beautiful little cabaret lounge. Then I'll be traveling to Florida in April. I will be in Wilton Manors. At the West End Lounge. They're doing a Scarlet Night that they do quarterly. So for people that are in Wilton Manors, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and those surrounding areas, they hold a Virgin Night once a quarter. So they've invited me to be their special guest artist. So I'll be doing that on the evening of the 21st. And then I'm hoping to there's a couple other cabaret lounges in Wilton Manor. So I'm going to stick around that week just to do some pop-ups of doing some singing with pianists and, all that kind of stuff. And then I'm doing a Disney wedding before that in Orlando. So that's what I've got so far. And then in May, I'm traveling with Virgin to do a few of these pop-up events. And then through my agency, we're booked in Europe in June, July, all amongst all my other travels. So it's going to be a fun summer ahead.
And you have your calendar, your performance calendar at www.dixiekrystals.com, right?
Yes. So I'll be updating all of that jazz this week because my website is the last thing that usually gets updated when I get home. But yeah, so my calendar will be on there and I update it pretty frequently, usually about once a week to every other week, depending on when I get new stuff on there. But yeah, so I'll be back onto there. And then also if they follow me on social media on Instagram, I'm always posting my calendar on there as well in my stories, and then also as part of my feed itself. So I'm always advertising. It's pretty much all I use social media for is to advertise.
Yep.
Yeah.
Dixie, before we let you go, just like last time, some fun or light questions. These are a little different than the first time you were here. So these are for repeat guests, and it's so that your fans and friends can get to know you a little better. So speaking of your fans and friends, special welcome to your fans and friends listening in. I hope they have enjoyed what they have heard at the Joy of Cruising, and will come back and check out some other episodes.
Absolutely.
So the first question, tell our listeners and your friends and fans, how do you spend your me time?
Relaxing in my recliner with my dog.
There you go.
That has been the thing that I enjoy most is just home time. Because I travel so much and I'm always on the go working. I mean, I literally spent 9 months being on. And so it's been really nice just to not to do anything and just to sit and relax and enjoy the outdoors, go on dog walks. We take drives throughout the day, and my best friend just moved here while I was away. So we've been doing walks every day. It's just really, honestly, it's like coming back to a new situation, a new life, because, my best friend of 30 years is now living within 10 minutes. And so I see him every day, and, getting to be able to go outside and just enjoy the outdoors and not be on a schedule. It's one of those things that I just find really important for me to reinvigorate and just kind of recharge my battery.
Okay. What are you listening to right now in terms of music, podcasts, or audiobooks, combination of the above?
Oh my gosh. So I have just my husband is a music file. And so we have been getting back into listening to Sergio Mendes and Brazil 66. So that has been on the playlist for the last week, in the car, in the house, everywhere we go. It's just really uplifting, ever since seeing the Super Bowl halftime show with Bad Bunny. I was like, gosh, this, like, just music itself and the Spanish culture and Spanish music just really just lights a fire under you. And I love that so much. And I was like, what is a good piece of music? And he reminded me that we have all this, because we typically will listen to old school stuff. Well, we've also been listening to the Carpenters' greatest hits. So I'm just like, it's all over the place. We're taking it back to the, the 60s and 70s.
Okay. What is the last live performance you experienced outside of cruise ships?
Yeah, we actually just enjoyed the other night. A friend of mine is on tour with the Music Man. So we got to see her, and my best friend was in tour with for Hairspray for 2 years. And so some of his castmates were in that as well. So we went to see them in Music Man while they're touring here in Colorado. Yeah, it was so much fun.
Okay. How about television and movies? Anything to turn my listeners or your fans on to?
I'm getting caught up on everything right now, from Emily in Paris to Bridgerton. But always our classics that we go back to are some British comedy shows like The Vicar of Dibley, which is one of my favorites. Keeping Up Appearances is my all-time favorite show, on top of The Golden Girls. So we've been catching up on that in between to break up the episodes. But it's basically, I have 9 months of television and movies. We just finally watched the second part of Wicked the other night because I haven't seen it because I've been on a ship.
What's your favorite movie of all time?
My favorite movie is Big Business from the 1980s, and it was with Lily Tomlin and Bette Midler, and they played twin sisters that were separated at birth.
Okay.
And then they found each other as adults. Yeah, honestly, the comedic timing, the writing, just comedy in general in that movie is probably the best that's ever been written.
Okay. Last request. Give us one of your funniest or favorite all-time Virgin Voyages cruise anecdotes.
Oh gosh, there's so many. There literally are so many. One that happened, the one story that happens all the time when I'm on board is I will have people come up to me and they'll be like, "Okay, it's great that you're here performing today, but when we see you around the ship, will you be dressed like this?" And I said, "Absolutely not." I said, "I'm only a hooker for pay." I said, "When I'm not getting paid, I'm going to be a man." But literally every single week, I always got that question. I said, "Oh, no, no, no." I said, "No disrespect to women," but I said, "This is too hard." I said, "No, I enjoy being a man."
Too much work.
Too much work. Way too much work.
Dixie, thank you so much for coming back on the Joy of Cruising podcast. I enjoyed talking to you just like I did the first time. And I think I told you what I didn't expect the first time. Your show was just a smash hit. It is number 5 all time. And
that's so crazy.
And that's saying a lot. That's saying a lot. And I will be honest with you. When I was promoting your first appearance, I got some pushback from just one person. I don't know why he felt he needed to say that, but he announced with all of this, he just announced to the world that this is one episode he'll be missing. And I'm like, okay. But
fine.
But that didn't affect anyone else, or if it did, it had very little effect on the podcast because it was a runaway smash.
Oh, I love that. You know what's so interesting?
And that's saying a lot because you kind of represent the perspective of just one cruise line.
Right.
Usually, the most popular episodes are where the guest kind of cuts across the whole industry.
Right.
And you're kind of niche. And I was amazed at the downloads I got for your episode.
I love that. Well, there are so many Virgin fans out there, and I equate Virgin fans to Disney adults. People are addicted, and they are really dedicated to the brand of Virgin, which, I mean, everyone that works at Virgin is very thankful for that because obviously it keeps us all employed. But it speaks volumes, I think, just for the brand and for what Sir Richard was able to create in this climate to know that this is what people want. They want an adults only.
That's a good point. I'm friends with the number one cruising podcast in the world, and they only cover Disney. So that's like your episode. It's like that's really saying a lot when you focus on one line, on one cruise line.
Yeah,
you're so popular. Anyway, all the best to you, Dixie. And as I like to say, we will see you on the ocean.
That we will. Thank you so much.
All right, take care.
All right.
The Joy of Cruising and Cruising Interrupted, each $16.99 plus shipping, and new release, The Joy of Cruising Again for $18.99 can be ordered at the link on thejoyofcruisingpodcast.com. For each of the 3 books, use the discount code Joy of Cruising Podcast and get $4 off. The Joy of Cruising books are also available at Amazon. Order the ebook at Amazon or your favorite online retailer. Stay in touch by joining the Joy of Cruising Podcast Facebook group or following the Joy of Cruising Podcast on Instagram. We're constantly adding new shows. Please leave a review and tell a friend about us. We hope you enjoyed this brief escape to the ocean. See you next week.